My name is Lyle Menendez. I've been incarcerated 31 years. I am the kid that did kill his parents, and no river of tears has changed that, and no amount of regret has changed it. You are often defined by a few moments of your life, but that's not who you are in your life. Your life is your totality of it.
Infamous Menendez brothers, who together murdered their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion, where they spoiled rich kids run amok or enraged victims of sexual abuse.
Time for the world to know the truth.
My dad had been molesting me.
Menendez was obsessed with Menendez.
Another alleged victim of Jose Menendez is coming forward with accusations of sexual abuse.
To immediately believe it had to just be about bad seeds and money and greed.
$14 million provides ample motive to some people to commit murder, and one sometimes does not need to look beyond that as a motive.
Not to break it down, my dad said, "All right, we'll deal with it tomorrow night." And my brother came home like frazzled, telling me the story. And I told him what had happened with Perry. Now we got to get out of this house. Let's talk about it somewhere else. And you're already fucking late. We're supposed to meet this guy at the movies. So I go to tell my mother, we're going to leave. We're going to the movies. I got plans. She goes, no, she gets real nervous. Tells me, no, you can't go. And I said, why? And she said, and she couldn't answer me. You can't go to the house tonight. You guys, it's too late. And my dad came storming through to the kitchen, pulled her aside, and just told my brother actually, because for some reason he had ended up standing next to me, told him, go upstairs and wait for me. And I looked at my brother and I said, no, you're not touching my brother, and we got into this big fight. And my brother left, went upstairs. And I said, oh man. And my dad, my mother came out and started saying something to me, and then my dad pulled her away and said, come on kitty, let's go in the room. And just looked at me, and then he closed the doors to the den. And you don't know my house too well, but you're not supposed to close the doors to that room. He closed the doors to that room. And, I mean, I can't describe it too well, but essentially I just panicked. And I just said, something's going on in the room. They've been waiting for my brother to get home. That's all this is. And they've been waiting. And I've been sitting here sitting duck, and they've been waiting for us to come home. He was coming home late, and was fucking up their plans a little bit.
Out of the house in Beverly Hills, we're driving about a block and a half up the road, and there's a blue Ford Taurus in the way with a red light flashing, and there's a guy running with, I think, a bulletproof vest and a double-barrel shotgun in front of the car. Lyle puts the Jeep in reverse and starts to back up slowly, and we hit something. And the next thing I know, I turn around, and it's a van, and 2 or 3 policemen come out with, police windbreakers on and everything, and they pull guns, and they just surround the Jeep, and they pulled us out one by one, put us face first on the pavement, and handcuffed us. And then they dragged me away into one of the police vehicles and said, do you know what this is all about? And I said, no, I'm sorry. I have an idea, because it started to click just then, after thinking about it for 15 minutes, what they could come out in such force about. And they said, well, Lyle's being arrested for the murder of his parent.
When I first came to the arraignment, I was so nervous, and so I walked out there, and Leslie made a joke, and it was so nerve-wracking that I smiled, and it was this defense mechanism that came out, but on the cameras, from then until the rest of eternity, have me smiling as if I think the whole thing is a joke. And ironically, exactly the opposite of how I felt, because behind the scenes, I can't stop crying. I'm on massive doses of antidepressants, and I just want to die. Instead, what's portrayed is this arrogant kid who thinks that this is all a joke, and who does he think he is, and what an awful person. And it's exactly the opposite of what was actually happening. Because the media attention became so extreme, there was no reconciling the trial with the district attorney. It became a fight with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's office that wouldn't normally have happened.
Erik was out on the lawn weeping in agony.
Donovan Goudreau told me
in March of 1992 that Lyle Menendez complained to him in April 1989, 4 months before the murders of Jose and Kitty Menendez, that Jose Menendez was sexually abusing Erik and Lyle Menendez.
He told me about his father.
Basically, he said that his father had been abusing Erik.
Yeah, him and Erik. And,
Lyle also.
Yes, and we take baths and stuff. I just, oh man, you're right, it's great.
And what happened next?
He proceeded to indicate to me by touching himself down and saying that his dad and him had been touching each other down there.
He asked me if my dad ever gave me massages.
Was there something else he told you about the massages? Like where they were?
Yes, he did.
Okay. What did he say about where the massages were?
Well, he told me his father was massaging his dick.
I believe it. Straightforward. Because of the noises I heard coming out of the room, the fact that Kitty would not allow me down the hallway to find out what was going on, I wasn't allowed to see the boys right after they came out of the bedroom.
And what happened after that?
He became more serious and indicated to me that he was afraid of not sleeping downstairs.
Why?
Because he and his dad had been touching each other, and he indicated that it was in his area.
When he said this, did he seem like he was kidding around, or did he seem serious?
No, he was serious.
What did you do?
I went and got Kitty and brought her downstairs and told her what was going on.
You took it seriously enough to go get Kitty then?
Yes, I did.
And did you tell Kitty what Lyle had told you?
Yes, I told her what he had indicated to me, what he was telling me, what he was showing me.
How did she look? Did she look shocked? Or?
She showed that she did not believe me.
What did she do?
There's a look that she got when she didn't believe me. And that's just, it was obvious to me that she did not believe me. She went and got Lyle and took him back upstairs.
I would trade my entire defense for a 30-second video of my father raping me. I would trade my whole case for it. Because I think it's so sanitized and so easy to use the word abuse. Oh, abuse wasn't so bad.
Your experience or in your research, how often have you seen child molesters who were also heterosexual and homosexual?
Oh, quite often. The current trend in the literature on sex offenders is to suggest that sex offenders are polyperverse, meaning they engage in more than one type of sexually deviant act. Probably the best data we have are from studies by Dr. Gene Abel in Atlanta, Dr. Judith Becker in Arizona, and their colleagues, which suggests, for example, that about half of incest fathers and stepfathers are abusing children outside of the home at the same time as those stepfathers or fathers are abusing their own children. About 18% of incest fathers or stepfathers are raping adult women at the same time as they're having sex with their own children. So the old notion that people tend to do just one deviant act, in the last decade or so, we've come to recognize of this polyperversity, that people who have problems with sex tend to exhibit in lots of different ways.
Would she ask you how she looked?
Yes.
And sometimes when she asked you how she looked, would she be inappropriately attired?
She would be topless. Usually just topless or like an open robe. And sometimes, with her clothes on.
And what ages are you talking about where she would expose herself to you this way?
Objection, the question is leading and mischaracterizing the testimony.
Overall. I was about 11.
She help you with your baths?
Yes.
How would she help you with your baths?
She would come in after I'd been in there a while. She would help wash my hair. and wash me with a sponge.
How old are you talking about?
Same, 11 to like 11 to 13.
And when you say she would wash you with the sponge, would she just wash your back, or?
No, she would wash me everywhere.
She would wash your genitals?
Yes.
You slept in bed with your mom a lot, didn't you, even when you were little?
Yes.
And did you continue to sleep in her bed around this time when you're 11 and 12?
Sometimes.
And sometimes, did you touch your mom?
Yes.
Would your dad be in bed?
Sometimes.
And where would you touch her?
Everywhere.
Did she touch your back?
She kissed me, but she didn't touch me.
And how long did these things go on for?
Until I was 13, a little bit farther than that.
And when this was going on with your mom, was she nicer to you than she used to be?
No. She was worse.
And did it stop at some point?
It stopped a few months after I was 13.
Who stopped it?
I did.
How did she react to that?
She was furious and, you know, she couldn't be too much worse, but she harassed me, and we just sort of had arguments about and problems about that for a long time, a couple of years.
Was your
really for my whole life, because it came out in other ways too.
Your relationship with your mother was never good before that, is that correct?
No.
Was it worse?
Kitty had found out that Jose was having an affair. I believe it was with his secretary, that one. And he went on to have several other affairs throughout their marriage.
She really loved her husband. Yeah. Was she afraid of her husband? Was she intimidated by her husband, or was she just madly in love with him and his role?
I think that she was afraid of her future.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
I think she was raised to believe by my mother that she was going to marry well, get educated, and know her trade, marry well.
That's very important to the
It was very important,
family.
Very important. And when this came tumbling down, I'm sure that it, I mean, this is all she thought of all her life, which is this is what's going to happen, because she was told and she believed it.
She asked me one time when we were on our way home, it was just two of us in the car, how I was coping with having broken up with my ex-boyfriend at the time. And I said, okay, and then she shared with me, well, you know, I was going to marry this other man, and then I ended up marrying Jose, and I guess I made the right choice because look how much money Jose makes. That was her reason for being in the marriage.
She constant attacking.
Were you angry? Were you angry with her also?
Was I angry? I was very angry. I thought that it was unfair.
Why was it unfair?
Because we were doing this and she was enjoying it, and I was hoping that things were going to get better for our whole relationship, and things might get better, and she got worse.
Did you think she was going to love you if you did these things?
I took it to be love, and that's what I wanted.
Did you always have problems with her after that about your girlfriends?
I always had problems with her, with my girlfriends, yes.
And after all of this stopped with your mother, did she show you specifically that she was unhappy that it had stopped, or she was angry about it?
She harassed me.
What do you mean she harassed you?
She just kept exposing herself, picking me up at the clubs with, in a robe, exposed, leaving her underwear around, calling me into the room when she knew that she was, changing, asking me if she looked pretty, and called me a liar when I said yes. Sometimes she would be in a tantrum, and then she would come over and she would touch my face real gentle, like she was going to kiss me, and then she would go back into a rage. And she was very upset.
And when Peter Cano said, it's not the way to treat a child, Peter Cano was told to leave, and he did. And when Charles Wadlington, the coach, said, that's not the way to treat a child, he was told to leave. When Bill Curtin said, that's not the way to treat a child, he was fired. And when teachers tried to say, what you're doing is not right, Lyle was pulled out of their class. What was the message to Lyle Menendez about who was there to help him? What happened to the few people who would stand up to his father? They were banished. Kitty Menendez is the only one who ever fought with Jose Menendez. And she appeared to have done it for herself, but not for her children.
This is the crime of Erik Menendez. And I cannot show you the crime that Jose Menendez committed on him, but you heard about some of the things that he liked to do to his little boy. And one of them was to stick tacks like this in his thighs and in his butt. This was a home run by power. And this was a home in which the children of the family became so fearful, and where fear became the only emotion they were entitled to have, that when a crisis occurred in this family, fear is what guided them. Intimidating to adults, intimidating to people at work, intimidating to teachers, intimidating to coaches, intimidating to his friends. What do you think he's like to a 2-year-old, or a 5-year-old, or a 9-year-old, or an 18-year-old who has always been under his thumb? He is terrifying to that person.
Una persona que hace daño a un niño y más a un hijo no merece vivir. Yo entiendo la rabia, yo entiendo el odio de los hermanos Menéndez, porque yo estuve en esa situación.
So we went to bed or whatever. We are making a long story short, but the next day we got up and my brother was gone, which is the way he was the whole weekend because he was too scared to be around the house, even though he didn't want to run away. And so I just hung out at the house all day. And I went into the house and I asked my dad for the number to the Anand Armitage tennis camp that he'd been bugging me for like all summer to go to. And my dad told me, well, no, I don't know where it is. What does it matter anymore? And just kind of like without looking at me. And I couldn't tell what that meant. But I knew it wasn't good, but then again, of course, our conversation Thursday wasn't good either, so I didn't expect him to be joyous to see me. And I don't know. So in any case, they kind of treated me like I was a ghost. That made me super nervous. But my brother wasn't around, and I figured I was safe parents are in bed, and they're waiting. Well, they look like, they were just kind of watching TV. But at that time, I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know they were waiting. I just felt they were just watching TV or whatever, and I was just kind of real nervous. My brother gets home, and my dad had tried to get into my brother's room Saturday night. And my brother, because Beverly Hills Mansion has special locks on each door, locked the door. He couldn't get in, and he decided.
Los hijos Menéndez tienen mi edad. Y solo de pensar de que ellos están presos después de todo lo que ellos pasaron con el papá. Ellos pasaron cosas terribles. ¿Quién sabe esta cosa más terrible de las que yo pasé? Eso es lo que yo pienso. Ya es tiempo. Y la justicia tiene que trabajar rápido en este caso, en este proceso. Eso es lo que yo le pido a Dios.
They're 18 and 21. Why couldn't they leave?
Right. Well, certainly there was a path that they could have taken is to try to get away from the family. But it sounds like even at that age, they were very much under the control of their father still. I think that oftentimes what people are not aware of is that trauma completely rewires the brain. They probably did think at one point it was either them or their parents, that it was a fight or flight conditioning that had come up.
We'll spend the rest of our life in prison. If we're not put in the same prison, there's a good probability I will never see him again. And that would be very, very difficult to live through.
It's ridiculous to say that they shouldn't be together because they would commit other crimes. The probation report indicates they are not a danger or a threat to anyone.
I thought I understood the case at the beginning, and the last 30, 40 years hasn't changed any of that. Society's changed. I'm so outraged by the fact that stupid people everywhere bought this defense. I wanted to stress again the importance of following the law and not following public opinion, because it's clear to me public opinion right now in this country is pretty much shit.
It's understandable how a person would agree to have his voice recorded for the purpose of getting his own self-serving story before the public. He proceeded to tell his life story or give to Norman Novelli the information that he wanted to send out to the public. And within all of those 25 recordings, we found one nugget of information that hurts the defendant. When you look at someone like Lyle Menendez, you have to ask yourself, is he the type of person who would make a stupid mistake like that? And the answer to that is yes.
At the end of the letter, I write to my brother, please destroy this. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't gotten me in enough trouble already going to a jail. I write, please destroy this. Please destroy this. And I go, Erik, why do you destroy it? Well, you know, it was such a nice letter. I wanted to show it to my attorney, so I hold on to it, and then I forgot about it. I'm like, oh my God. I'm honestly going to just be myself and affect them in a real positive way. Gave it to him as a gift. He goes, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I mean, what kind of a piece of shit who says that he's your friend is gonna, how offensive is it? All the words, baby, you wanna hear. Cause you look so sweet and fine. I just got to make you mine. This guy's unbelievable. When he's testifying, Erik and I should be dressed in clown suits.
When he said, I'm telling you, Judalon, you'll get killed, he was just trying to bite that off from going, wasn't he?
They know who you are. We had no idea who she was. She was like a bad movie.
Yeah.
Like Eric's script. Eric's script is better than this. I said, he can't do that without bringing an actual shotgun in the courtroom, and the judge said, the judge is biased. Totally. He was a prosecutor 5 years ago in the only other case in Beverly Hills where a kid killed his father. And he lost. And the kid went home on the self-defense. The exact same case as ours, because the father was wealthy, and he argued that it was for the money, and he lost. And so he's out to get it. Plus, he fucked up the McMartin case, and he fucked up the officer case, the King case. He was the judge that let them go. So he doesn't want to be seen as a pussy judge. So, but he's pretty fair, though. He's going places. That's why he wants, a politically correct decision here. Which he's starting to wonder what is a politically correct decision.
You didn't testify in the second because?
I didn't testify in the second because I no longer had my lead attorney, Jill Lansing, on the case. She was quite devastated by the outcome of this case. She felt very strongly about what the truth was in this case. I had been sort of dragged into testifying and talking about what happened to me. I really desperately did not want to do it because of its effect on my family members and my grandmother at that time, my father's mother, who accepted what occurred but did not want to hear it in open court. It took everything I had to testify in that first trial. It was very difficult. When I got the result that we got, which was no result, I told my brother I wasn't doing it again.
Is that I did not love my father or love my mother. That is the farthest thing from the truth. I miss my mother tremendously. I wish that I could go back and talk to her and give her a hug and tell her I love her and I wanted her to love me and be happy with me and be happy that I was her son and feel that joy and that connection, and I just want that.
To turn our attention to California, where next hour, Erik and Lyle Menendez will appear virtually for a hearing, a status hearing, in their continued quest to try to break out of prison.
Attorneys for the Menendez brothers are asking a judge to reconsider their clients' convictions. They are both serving life sentences for the 1989 murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty.
Let's bring in crime justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who has been following this case for a while. And now let's talk about today's hearing. There's different tracks, and frankly, it sounds like nobody knows exactly what's going to be accomplished until it actually takes place.
Yeah, good afternoon. What we do know is that the governor is not going to weigh in until after these hearings, these all-important hearings. Erik and Lyle Menendez set to appear virtually in court today, their first appearance in 28 years since being convicted of killing their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, back in 1989. Gunning them down in their Beverly Hills mansion made international headlines. This is the brothers' first major shot at freedom after the outgoing DA announced that they should be resentenced. Today's hearing status conference is to see if all the parties are still on track for next month's resentencing hearing that is scheduled for December 11th, or if it should be delayed, because here is what the newly elected DA told Court TV and Ted Rowlands. Take a listen. Bars. A judge this week could decide that the newly uncovered evidence in this case warrants re-examination of the convictions of the brothers. That evidence includes a letter Lyle wrote to family members detailing abuse by his father and the allegations from a Menudo boy band member that Jose Menendez allegedly sexually abused him when he was the head of RCA Records in the 80s. The Netflix series and the documentary on this case really propelled this case back into the spotlight after all these decades. Here is part of that press conference outside the courthouse with the current DA, Gascon.
I miss standing on an ocean and feeling the water roll over my feet. I miss feeling the scent of the earth and not being able to walk down a forest path, touch the tree, feel the bark against my fingers. It's difficult to know that I'll never be able to. And I don't want people to think that I feel like I'm entitled to. I don't. I'm not. I'm responsible for this tragedy, and so I have to live with the consequences of it. I just want to hope that people can see my life for the totality of what it was and what got me to that place where I could ever emotionally kill the people I love.
It's a silent and devastating epidemic with numbers that are really staggering. It's estimated that 1 in every 6 men has been molested as a child. 1 out of 6.
I was molested by a member of my extended family.
I was molested by a family member.
By my landlord. By several priests.
It was a neighbor.
It was a doctor.
It was my scoutmaster.
It was an award-winning teacher.
I was molested by my father.
Statistics show that 90% of child molesters target children they know. And the horrific side effects of childhood sexual abuse can last a lifetime.
Those men are at greater risk for many emotional problems, including depression, anxiety, problems in relationships with intimacy, problems with sexual dysfunction, problems with sexual orientation confusion, and increased risk for suicide as well. The shame that they feel immense, and it really totally blocks their ability to talk about it, and they wind up keeping it a secret.
What about the parents? We had an obligation as storytellers to also try and put in their perspective.
He would take their heads and push them underwater until they started panicking and needed air.
He just said that it was our secret. My dad came in and told me to take off my clothes and to kneel on the bed. That bad things would happen to me if I told anybody.
My sister could have protected her kids. That was her job. It was understood by everybody.
This 43-year-old female has a greater than 1-year history of dysthymic disorder.
She would fly into rages, immense rages.
Kitty had a temper.
Her teeth would be like this, and she would be coming at you like that.
The veins in her neck would pop, and her fists would be and then clenched, where her knuckles would be white from clenching her fists.
She was very exasperated, and she just started hitting him.
Keep clenching your fists. Was she clenching her fists?
Yes.
She'd kind of work up, in her, she'd kind of give me one of these,
He drove with the left hand while he held her hands with the right.
Open a cupboard and start taking coffee cups, coffee saucers, breakfast bowls, these are glass items, and repeatedly throwing them in the sink.
Go look at her, and she'd be just sitting in a room, just doing that. And
is it frightening to you today to think about that?
It was, yeah, it was, and I recall that when I talk about it.
As she saw Lyle come in from the guest house and travel back and forth, each time she saw him, the confrontation tended to get to be a little bit more abrasive each time. It got a little worse.
She could get into my face, and sometimes it would start from a brief distance away, but she would move towards me as her anger.
And was it frightening to watch?
Yes, extremely, because especially towards Erik, being as young as he was.
She would confront him?
Pretty much on a regular basis as we went through.
He yelled at me for several occasions that upset me when I think about them.
Do they still upset you today?
Yes.
If he did not respond, did that end her outburst?
No.
What would happen if he did not respond?
She would get more angry.
How does it upset you today?
Because she could be her intensity on her anger or her rage could be very scary.
I was 23.
Was that rage still frightening to you?
Oh, yes, very. I lived in fear of it, to be honest with you.
On axis 1, panic disorder. Axis 2, suspect personality disorder.
She would attack me as a person.
Did he act angry and loud in return?
Rarely.
Did she seem happy about having children?
No.
She told me she wished they would have never been born because they had broken her marriage.
She thought it would be a better arrangement to have Lyle stay with his grandmother and that she and Jose could visit him Friday en route to skiing and then Sunday en route home. and she wanted to know what I thought about that.
And what'd you tell her you thought about that?
I told her I thought it was an awful idea.
It was atypical that a mother would drop the children off and be gone for the entire day.
Usually the mother was not the dominant criticizer.
After a session, if she would be there waiting to pick Erik up, or I would come over to her and begin to tell her how her son did. And I felt she had no interest.
Lyle started getting yelled at by Jose and Kitty, saying he was a sissy and a baby because he had wet his bed. And he started being called, they were calling him names and getting mad at him. That's all I know. I left.
Unless his mother was there, I usually didn't notice him.
Yeah? He was sort of invisible?
Mm-hmm.
Is it typical that both parents are overbearing tennis parents?
No.
She was loud and often raised her voice at him.
What about on days when one or both of the boys didn't feel well?
Didn't matter.
They had to play and be coached even when they were sick?
Yes.
And did you ever hear her talk to them in kind of a soft tone of voice, kind of a caring, comforting kind of voice?
No, no.
Did you have any pet names for them?
No.
Call them Sweetie or Pumpkin?
No.
She was along the side of the pool, running up and down the side of the pool, asking him or telling him to hurry up, you have to swim faster. Often she had a stopwatch.
Most other mothers, if they had dropped off their children, would be there right away to pick up the kids.
She went shopping. And then when they were paged, that she knew where they were.
Okay, so she got paged, your children, Mrs. Menendez, your children are at the information booth, they're at security or something like that?
She would be shouting at him to hurry up, you're not swimming fast enough, you're never going to beat Rob Bergman. And Rob was, an excellent swimmer, and Erik was not even in the same age group with him.
You'd be called stupid and type of thing. Were the same terms used for the boys?
Yes.
Thought it was cruel.
Okay. How was it cruel?
Because they had to physically suffer.
To grow up with that amount of pressure is very hard on children. They also had, their schedule was such that there was no time to go outside and play.
He had gotten out of the pool and was standing with his hands together, clutching his arms to his side, saying he was cold, and Mrs. Menendez saying he had to get back in the pool and swim faster in order to beat Rob.
And did you see any reaction on Erik's part besides appearing to be cold?
He was almost to the point of tears.
Well, Erik didn't like that. Didn't like it at all. He refused to go in. Kitty was fit to retire because a little girl had gone in and he wouldn't.
Did she talk to you about the damage children can do to a marriage?
Yes, she did.
And did you coach them sometimes before they went to school?
Yes.
And what time would those kinds of lessons begin?
6 a.m., 6:30.
That they were coached immediately after school?
Yes.
Was it within your personal knowledge that they were coached at night?
Yes.
And it was in your personal knowledge that they were coached all day long on each weekend day?
Yes.
So, what free time did they have?
None. We even practiced on Christmas, holidays, every day.
Erik ran away.
Yes, the beginning of the summer in 1983.
Why did you continue to coach them if so much that you didn't approve of was going on?
Because I cared for them.
And you're rather emotional about this even now, are you not?
Yes.
There was one instance when we couldn't find Lyle. And we found Lyle in a shop down the block on an ice cream place, eating an ice cream. Well, the owner figured that parent would come at some point. He had kept the kid there feeding him ice cream. It was quite a bill.
Would she console them, ask how they felt?
No. She told me that children drive a wedge between their man and his wife.
How old was he when he was down the street eating ice cream?
Young. 4 or 5?
Well, I thought it was about all they had.
In what sense? What do you mean by that?
As a friend.
Was there a difference in the way the boys acted when they were away from the home, say visiting relatives?
They seemed freer or more carefree or
Did you find her to be an obsessive personality.
Yes.
There was a terrific difference between private and public.
She had that concern since the moment she married. She was paranoid about Jose ever having an affair.
I could never understand her level of professed distress.
Kitty wanted to have a friendship as part of the marriage, and it was very clear to him that a friendship was something different. He was not willing to work at being a friend with her.
Inordinately more distressed than many people I usually see with these diagnoses.
She went through her husband's American Express card receipts from his office. She even flew to New York, and she told me that she stood outside the address of the woman he had the affair with and waited for her to come out onto the street so that she could see her. And then she walked past her so that she could see her up close. And she was constantly thinking about her. Appearances were very important, and a divorce would have demonstrated that that family had failed. She stated that she loved her husband very much, although she was very angry with him, and that why should she divorce? She had no place to go.
Where he's 14.
Yes.
What would happen when he would go take a bath?
After he would be in the bathroom, Kitty would tell me that she had to go help him wash his hair.
Would she go into the bathroom?
Yes.
Did Kitty express concern for the boy's safety?
I don't think so.
Every minute of their day was accounted for, and always intensely.
I snuck down to the basement to see how Erik was doing.
Acute Xanax and alcohol ingestion, depression.
I wouldn't want to know what was wrong.
Why?
Because it might be directed at me.
He had stood up and pushed his plates out of the way, very violently knocking over glasses and condiments, whatever were on the table, and said something to her like, "What did you do to this food?"
In public, she would put on a facade.
Was Lyle allowed to cry in this family?
I would say, in my opinion, no.
Without looking at me, just looking blank into the floor, he just said, "It's all right, I'm used to it."
Like staring at the ceiling, almost asleep with his eyes open.
I tried to hug Erik one time, and she told me that I wasn't supposed to hug him, that he needed to grow up, that he was being too much of a baby.
Did you go to him to help him out?
Kitty stopped me.
Did she go to him to help him out?
No.
In fact, I tried, and Kitty stopped me.
Beyond upset.
Do you remember anything about Erik having a speech problem?
He stuttered.
Huh?
I'll just work here. I'll tell him to get it.
It's done.
All right, what a wonderful sight.
What would Kitty do if Erik was stuttering?
I think she would just make fun of him, if I remember correctly.
He looked devastated.
For me, my mom made it seem like it was worse than death to be gay.
I asked to leave because I was miserable there. I wanted to go home and have a normal summer, the rest of what I could have.
Well, did you either see or hear anything that sounded like or looked like affection or love from Kitty to either of the boys?
No, I did not.
How old were you when you heard things like, "I wish you were never born"?
Do you remember ever seeing Kitty intercede with Jose's belittling or berating or making fun of Erik?
No.
Did he still strike you as a happy child?
No.
Did you feel that you were being purposely excluded?
Yes, I did.
As soon as Jose took either one of the boys into their room, the door was locked behind him. And Kitty made it very clear that she did not go down the hallway to listen or go near that door.
What did you say to your mom?
I told her to tell Dad to leave me alone. And he keeps touching me.
Lyle looked like an animal that had been thrown on the side of the road. I mean, he was, his head was down, he was very sad, and he didn't say anything.
Christy was a very pretty model. Is that right?
She was pretty.
And was she nice?
Yeah, she was like an angel.
And did your mom like her?
My mom just despised her. She called her the same names that my dad did. My dad didn't like Christy either. Called her a slut, and a bimbo, and a gold digger, and just a country girl she had come in from out of state. She was from the Midwest, and she came here to be a model.
She said that she was taking him places sexually that he was not prepared to go, and that struck me as very odd.
Did your mom do something about the plates that you ate off of?
Well, she thought she was AIDS infected. And,
What was that based on?
that she was a model. So she wouldn't let me eat at the table. So I ate on paper plates in the den. And, she wouldn't, I remember I let Christy go in the kitchen one time when my mom wasn't there, and my brother actually allowed her in the kitchen. I was playing tennis, and my mom found out, and they were furious over the phone, and then she came home, and she boiled all the silverware, everything in the kitchen, told me she'd never be allowed in her house again. And the relationship ended shortly after that.
This would not have been a suitable wife for the family. It would not have been a trophy for the family, and that's what they wanted to see in a daughter-in-law.
You thought your mother could read minds, and you found out later that your mother taped your calls, correct?
I didn't know if she could read minds, but she seemed to have it seemed like magic, and I found out later she was.
Here is a gathering of people. Here is Lyle in the bathtub, one can assume the morning of the birthday party. And here is Erik in bed. Now, Erik is in bed when this naked picture of Lyle is being taken. See, here's the next picture on the roll. Now, are we supposed to believe that 6-year-old Erik, who testified he was not allowed to handle a camera until he was 12 or 13, got out of bed to go take a naked picture of his brother, and then got back into bed so someone could take a picture waking him up?
Would she ask you how she looked?
Yes.
And sometimes when she asked you how she looked, would she be inappropriately attired?
She would be topless. Usually just topless or like an open robe. And sometimes, with her clothes on.
And what ages are you talking about where she would expose herself to you this way?
Objection. The question is leaving and mischaracterizing the testimony.
Overall. I was about 11.
She help you with your baths?
Yes.
How would she help you with your baths?
She would come in after I'd been in there a while. She would help wash my hair and wash me with a sponge.
How old are you talking about?
Same, 11 to like 11 to 13.
And when you say she would wash you with the sponge, would she just wash your back or?
No, she would wash me everywhere.
She would wash your genitals?
Yes.
Girlfriends that struck you as inappropriate?
I think she said that Lyle was in Princeton at the time, and he had a girlfriend named Jamie, I think, that Kitty did not approve of, and she said that her husband also did not approve of her because she was older, and she said that she was taking him places sexually that he was not prepared to go, and that struck me as very odd.
Why?
Objection to proper opinion.
Sustained.
When you were little, Do you remember her being gentle and affectionate with you?
She was never gentle and affectionate with me.
Did she ever act like she loved you?
Not when I was little, and there was just one short period of time when I thought that might be true. But like I said before, I felt that she hated me, and that's what she told me all the time.
The defense has now argued the following. They've said to resolve this case, jurors had to decide a single critical question. Was Jose Menendez molesting his sons? The problem with saying that that is the critical question in the Menendez trial is that it's wrong. The jury never, in any of the two juries, had to resolve the question of whether the Menendez brothers were sexually molested. In fact, the counsel, Leslie Abrahamson, 30 years before, during these trials, properly framed where sexual abuse comes into play. What she said back then is that we have never said that because you're abused, you're justified in killing your abuser. We didn't argue that, and we never will. Well, 30 years later, apparently, the Menendez counsel is arguing just that. Because what the jury had to figure out is on the night of August 20th, 1989, did the Menendezes conspire to kill both their father and their mother that night? Did they in fact kill them? And what was their state of mind at that time, on the night of August 20th, 1989? Did they engage in these killings willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation, or was it an act of self-defense? They had an actual fear of imminent harm, that both their father and their mother was going to kill them, and they acted in self-defense. The sexual abuse part, as Leslie Abrahamson recognized correctly back then, was not a fourth question for the jury to answer. So now we have a letter filed in May of 2023 that is supposedly a 1988 letter written from Erik Menendez to Andy Cano about this sexual abuse. Never discussed in any of the two trials when Erik Menendez testified or Andy Cano testified. And we believe it's inconceivable, as we've argued in our papers, and defies common sense, that if they had evidence that would show that sexual abuse had been communicated not just 6 years before the events, but 9 months before the 1989 killings, that it would absolutely have come out during one or both of their testimonies. The key for the trial is basically what happened that night, what was in their head that night. Sexual abuse is abhorrent, and we will prosecute sexual abuse in any form it comes. But sexual abuse in this situation, while it may have been a motivation for Erik and Lyle to do what they did, does not constitute self-defense. And that's why Leslie Abrahamson said back in 1993 that sexual abuse does not justify killing your parents, and that they would never argue that.
Her life ended, and our lives essentially ended, all because of this fateful decision. There had to be a series of decisions she made of not to tell what was happening. What kind of mother lets it happen?
I miss standing on an ocean and feeling the water roll over my feet. I miss the scent of the earth and not being able to walk down a forest path, touch a tree, feel the bark against my fingers. It's difficult to know that I'll never be able to. And I don't want people to think that I feel like I'm entitled to that. I don't. I'm not. I'm responsible for this tragedy, and so I have to live with the consequences of it. I just want and hope that people can see my life for the totality of what it was and what got me to that place where I could ever emotionally kill the people I love.
What ultimately draws the eye to this case is something deeper. Questions of what goes on behind closed doors of families who seem to have it all. Wealth, privilege, prestige, but also pain.
And I was extremely hungry. It's been a long day. And I knocked on Kitty's door of their room, and Kitty was in the room, but there was no Jose. And she said that he was down in Erik's room. She then said that we had to wait until Jose came out of Erik's room before we could go to dinner. So
did you wait in her room or return to your room?
No, I went back to my room. What had happened was I had to go there one more time. I went back to her room and said, Kitty, it's really getting very late. Why don't we just go down to eat? And she said, no, it'll only be a few more moments.
How much time before Jose did come out of Erik's room?
If I can remember right, it was like around 8:30 or 8:45. What happened then was we said we would like to go in and see Erik to at least tell him that we thought the game was very well. We were sorry that he lost. Jose made fun of that, but as we were there in front of the room, he said, well, okay, Erik is in his room and he will not be coming to dinner with us. I looked in the room and it was very dimly lit and Erik was in bed.
How did he look?
He looked very sad, and you could tell something was wrong with him, okay? He didn't want to speak to us. I was going to go over and give him a hug, and I was told that I shouldn't do that Erik just didn't want people to hug him.
It's very easy to go to a crime scene of a homicide and to take all the gruesome pictures in the world and parade them later in front of a jury and get those people upset. But where is the picture of Jose Menendez bending Erik over the footboard of his bed when he's 12 years old so that his father can now go all the way in spite of the child's screams? Well, there is such a picture. But unfortunately, it only lives in Erik's mind now. Now, do you recall a day when you were working at the Menendez home when you came across some printed material in 2 different locations in the home?
Yes.
And would you first tell us what were the 2 different locations where you noticed this printed material?
In the master bedroom, on window seat, and on the floor.
And was there another room in the house where you saw similar printed material the same day?
In the library by the entry.
Now, this library by the entry, you notice this courtroom is what we call paneled. It has wooden walls.
Yes.
And did that library by the entry also have wooden walls, paneled?
Yes, it did.
Now, would you describe for the members of the juries what the nature of this printed material was?
It was men.
Vague as to which printed material she's speaking about at this point. I believe there's the master bedroom and then also the library.
Yes, you can be more precise.
Was the printed material both in the master bedroom that you observed and in the library of the same type and nature?
Yes, they were.
And would you describe what these things were?
It was males. It was pornography.
And it was pornographic what? Magazines, books, what?
Magazines.
And it depicted what sex?
Male.
All males?
Yes.
And did it show males doing things with other males?
Yes.
What, without getting graphic, what kinds of things?
Having sex.
Okay. And if I could focus your attention on the materials that you saw in the master bedroom, approximately how many of these magazines did you see?
There was a box, and it had stacks about, I'd say, maybe this high.
If you hold your hands up so the judge...
About this high.
When you say a
2
box,
inches or so, 2.5 inches.
Probably more than that, a little more than that.
3 inches.
was it like a packing box?
Yes, it was.
Let me show you something, just as an example. These photographs were found in this envelope. This envelope has the handwriting of his mother, Mary Louise Menendez, and she had a beautiful handwriting. She was a school teacher. And she wrote Eric's birthday, November 1976. And inside this envelope were the original small prints.
Now, I think almost as amazing as the fact that these pictures were taken was that these pictures were saved. You will see the envelope that they came in, and you will see the negatives, and you will see the original small photos, and you will see Kitty Menendez's handwriting that was on the envelope these photos were in, which says Eric's birthday, November 1976. She saw these photographs, and she kept them.
One of the things that my dad would do, he would show us the pressure points. He would have Lyle do the pressure points on me, and it would hurt. He would have Lyle continually do it. Even though I was, in pain, I wouldn't be able to vocalize the pain. One time, he felt Lyle was holding back on me. Told Lyle harder, and Lyle whispered, "I'm sorry." And I screamed out. Lyle stood up and balled his fist and said to Dad, "No." Dad smacked him across the face, and then he said something that to this day has always resonated with me. He said, "I didn't raise you to get weak because you feel another person's pain." Was the theme that you don't. And him hitting Lyle was something that he did not just in front of me, but he did routinely. And he knew that we weren't going to talk about it to each other. The stress and the pain in the household was a secret that we didn't share with each other. That was very big. He made sure that the things that happened to me, they didn't get to Lyle. And things that happened to Lyle, Lyle didn't share with me. So there was that sense of isolation.
Los hijos Menéndez tienen mi edad. Y solo de pensar de que ellos están presos después de todo lo que ellos pasaron con el papá. Ellos pasaron cosas terribles. ¿Quién sabe esta cosa más terrible de las que yo pasé? Eso es lo que yo pienso. Ya es tiempo. Y la justicia tiene que trabajar rápido en este caso, en este proceso. Eso es lo que yo le pido a Dios.
Was it a regular modus operandi? Was it random? Like what specifically was Jose Menendez allegedly doing in these other instances? And I don't mean specific to the assault itself, but just making sure these attacks could happen.
Well, one thing that happened was that Jose Menendez went on tour with Menudo for 3 weeks in Brazil in the fall of 1985. And that's very unusual. I've learned through other people in the music business, the head of a major record label never goes on tour with one act for more than 1 or 2 nights. And during this 3 weeks that Jose Menendez was part of the tour, the members of Menudo were being dressed in drag and makeup after the shows. They were given drugs and alcohol. And if you were a friend of Edgardo Diaz, the creator and manager of Menudo, you were allowed to pick your favorite member of the band and take them back to your room. So there's a lot that went on during that tour, and that's just one tour for 3 weeks.
And essentially, right in front of us, he took away my entire defense. We were not allowed to talk about any psychological trauma we went through. And any terrorizing or intimidation or fear that occurred in the house, it was excluded from the trial. And he went through each witness and said they can't testify to that. They're not allowed to testify to that. And having been the judge in the first trial, he knew exactly what the most important aspects of our case was. Our case was based on just a history of fear that I had of my mom and my dad. Without all of the years of trauma that my relatives have seen us go through as children, without that testimony, it's very difficult to convey the trauma and the terror and all of the bad things that happened in my house. It's almost impossible for me to do it by myself because I could say it, but it's just me saying it.
I have real difficulty believing that they were abused in this whole scenario, because to accept it would mean that they were being abused as basically adults. Big, strong, strapping boys, no other way to put it. If they were really, really being brutalized and sodomized by their father as adults, there were so many options for them.